Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special day because earlier today, when I'm filming this on Friday the 23rd, I did my last exam. Let's all hear a round of applause for me for getting through my exams and surviving and only having about 3 breakdowns. I've done my exam, so it's now time for me to relax for like 3 months. If you guys didn't know, I'm a massive fan of the show Gilmore Girls. If you haven't seen Gilmore Girls, go and watch Gilmore Girls. And there's basically this reading challenge that I've heard about called the Rory Gilmore reading challenge. Basically, for the people who don't know Rory Gilmore, she's basically one of the main characters in Gilmore Girls, and she's a really big reader. She takes a book everywhere she goes, and she's basically the definition of me. She's more smart than me. Basically, there is a list of 339 books that are mentioned throughout all 7 seasons of Gilmore Girls, of all the books that Rory and her mum whatever mention. And basically the challenge of this video is basically you're just going to take the books off of the list that you've read and basically kind of review them, say what you thought about them. I'm kind of cheating because I've only read 7 books on that list, but there's 17 books in this video because the other 10 are like books that maybe I started reading and some that are on my shelf that I'm going to read, just haven't yet. And the first book is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. It's been taking me about 5 times to say that name, Leo Tolstoy. I haven't read this, but it's on my shelf. It's a big book with small writing. I think there might be like 800 pages in this. I want to read it. I really do want to read it. I just haven't yet. So I can't really give my opinion on it apart from it's on my shelf and I will hopefully read it. The next book is Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I started reading this when I was about, how old would I have been? Like 10 or 11, about that age, so quite young. The only reason I started reading that at that age was because I was studying World War II at that time in school, and I started reading it. It was a bit too much, I think, for that age. But I really do want to reread that book because that part of history is something I'm incredibly interested in. So I do want to reread that, and it's just a very well-known book that probably loads of people have read that I just haven't properly read yet. Next book is Beowulf. I don't know who it's by. It was a compulsory reading year 7. I would have been like 11 or 12. I remember reading it in year 7 and not liking it, and I really don't remember anything about it. So I don't know if I'm going to reread it, but once again, another book that's on this list that I haven't read. But I have, but not in a while. The next book I've actually read, and that is Carrie by Stephen King. Stephen King is a pretty famous horror writer. He's written some pretty awesome books. This one's the only Stephen King book I've read. I do want to read it because the trailer for that film, oh my god, that is like my thing. I read Carrie because I'd watched the film with Chloe Moretz in it and was like, oh, it's a book, I should read it, and then I did. I didn't like the book as much. I feel like because obviously I was used to the story of the film and obviously it has changed a bit. I was a bit like, I don't know, nothing's really surprising me. I feel like if I read it without knowing the story like in depth, I would have enjoyed it more. This book is about a girl called Carrie. She's kind of like the school freak because her mum is like super religious to the point where she's a bit crazy, but it basically follows her as she kind of becomes a woman for the first time, and then she realizes that she's got like telekinesis like powers. I liked it, just not as much as if I hadn't seen the film, basically. The next book is Charlotte's Web by, if I can remember the author, no I can't. It's like E.B. White. I probably read this like when I was a kid. I loved the film, so that's probably why I read it. I do remember reading it when I was little. I haven't read it in years. Probably do want to reread it because again it's a childhood kind of favourite, childhood classic. I actually don't know if I can completely remember the story. I should probably either read the book or rewatch the film. I might go for the former. Again, it's on the list. Just haven't read it in ages. The next 2 books, obviously I've read these because obviously, and that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Obviously I'm putting both my editions in it because this one is beautiful. If you saw last week's video, you would have seen me unbox this and you would have seen how beautiful it is. I'm not going to go into depth. I'll link last week's video in the description below for you guys to kind of go and see me talk about this. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. They're on this list. I've obviously read these more than once and they're amazing. I don't know if I have to say anything else. I don't have to say anything else because it's Harry Potter and they're both bloody amazing. The next book that is on this list is Life of Pi. You probably know Life of Pi because it was basically like an international success box office film. But I remember the film came out and then I got gifted the book. I read the book, but I think I would have been like 14, I think, 13, 14. I think the writing style of it, I remember it's very much like, it sometimes steers off of the story and kind of really goes into depth about explanations, and I think just the writing style was a little bit too mature for me at that age, so I never really got into it and I never finished it. So I would like to give that one a reread just to see if I can get into it now that obviously I'm older. The film is really good. The film is really good. If you maybe don't want to read the book and you're still interested in the story, I really do recommend giving the film a watch because it is so stunning. It's basically about this boy called Pi. Basically he's on this boat that's got loads of animals on it with his family, and that boat basically ship shipwrecks, well not shipwrecks, but kind of gets into a storm and basically, and it's basically about his survival on like a literal lifeboat, like a little sailboat with these animals. The film is visually amazing, and obviously they do go back into his past, and that's like the more kind of like comedy moments. The bits where he's with the animals is so heartbreaking, so heartwarming in places. I didn't obviously finish that book. I would like to reread it just because I like that story and I do like the film. The next one is The Metamorphosis by, I should know the name, I studied the play last year. Is it Franz Kafka? I'm gonna go for that. I studied the play in my first year at A-level drama. It was a weird play, but this boy called Gregor, one day he wakes up as a bug. I had to do that in drama. I didn't read the book, but I studied the play, so I'm kind of putting it here. It's kind of cheating. It's cheating, but oh well. The next one, again, is one that it's on my shelf, just haven't read. I know the story because of the film, and that is My Sister's Keeper by Jodie Picoult. This is a film, a very well-known film. This book is about Anna, and she was basically born to save her sister's life. Her sister, called Kate, who has got leukemia, she was basically born to be like a transplant, like bone marrow transplant and all the kind of transplant stuff for her sister Kate. Basically follows Anna as she kind of wants to have her human rights. Since she was young, she's always just been donating stuff to her sister Kate, and it's all about her being like, I have rights. I should be allowed to say like, if I want to do this. Very emotional story. I want to kind of read it because obviously I've already seen it visually, so maybe I don't know if it'll give the same effect written down. It's a very well-known book. Loads of people read this because the film was like massive. The next book, once again, was compulsory read at school, so I have basically read it, just not for like 4 years, but it's a Jane Austen book, and that is Northanger Abbey, and we did this in year 9 for English. Then when we was like studying it, hated it. Now I kind of feel like I would like it because remembering what it's about and remembering kind of like the jokes we always used to have like when we were reading it, I would like to reread it. Or looking back at all the books that I read for like compulsory for school, I'm kind of thinking I would love to reread all of them. The only book that I would just not, my friends who are in my class are going to be triggered when I say this, The Other Side of the Truth. Even my English teacher hated that book. He hated that book with a passion. Northanger Abbey, I would like to read it because it's a classic, it's Jane Austen, and I feel like I would enjoy the story if I wasn't like forced to read it. The next one again is a compulsory read that I did for my GCSEs, and basically everybody did this for their GCSEs. It's basically a GCSE book, like there's memes about this being a GCSE book, and it's no longer a GCSE book because with the new changes in GCSEs, they're only allowed to study English books, like books that are written by English authors, which I think is so stupid. This book is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. If you don't know this, spoiler alert, George shoots Lenny. I read this in year 10/11 for my GCSEs, did an exam on it. But again, it's one I feel like if I read now, I would really enjoy. It's based in obviously like 1930s America after like the Wall Street crash during the Great Depression. It's all about the American dream. Like Northanger Abbey, I don't want to reread it to see if I like it now when it's not being shoved down my throat basically. The next book is a book that I really did enjoy and is one of my favourite films, and that is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book is about Charlie, and it's his first day at high school. I think he does suffer with some mental health issues. It's about him befriending these two people who are seniors and how they kind of just like take him on and they become best friends, and it's so sweet. The film is amazing. I love the film so much. The next book I have talked about on this channel before. It was in last month's TBR, but I don't think I'm gonna read it. I have been in a slump because of exams. Probably now that I'm not doing my exams, the next book I'm gonna read is gonna be Lord of Shadows. It is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Again, I have talked plenty of times about this beautiful cover. It is gorgeous. I feel like I'm gonna really get into Jane Austen books if I read one of them, and I feel like I should read Jane Austen because Jane Austen is very well known. It might happen this summer. It will hopefully happen this summer. I'm hoping it will happen this summer. The next book, once again, it's on my shelf. I just haven't read it, and I've seen the film, and that is The Time Traveller's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I know this film. I know this story. I haven't read the book. This book is about Claire, and throughout her whole life, she's kind of been like meeting or seeing this guy called Henry. He pops up at different times in her life because he's a time traveller, and she kind of, as she goes throughout her life, she's always meeting him, so she's kind of like falling in love with him, and it's basically about their life together with him being a time traveller. I've loved the story ever since I was a kid from watching the film, and I feel like I should like reread it for like the memes. And the final one, we finally got to the end. This has been a long video. The final one that is on this list that I have read, again I had to read it for school. I kind of want to reread it, but not necessarily in like the format or the language that it is like that is originally written in, because it is a book by William Shakespeare, one of the greatest writers of our time. I just don't get along with his writing, so I feel like I want to read like a translated version that's kind of put into our English English rather than his English, or like Elizabethan English, I think that's what it's called. Another reason why I want to reread it is because, fun fact, I love these sort of stories. I remember when we were reading it in class, and especially when we watched the films, basically when they both died at the end, everyone else was like, oh my god, this is so stupid. Oh my god, I can't believe they died for each other. Oh, they haven't even known each other that long. And there was me just sitting there being like, it's so cute. I'm so sad that they died. So that's another reason why I want to reread it or read it, because I love the stories about forbidden love, about love that shouldn't be. That is it for this week's video. So that is all the books I've kind of read, not really-ish, on the Rory Gilmore reading challenge. I'll link the list below if you guys want to go and check out the list, maybe want to do this video, or you just want to see if you've read any of these books, how many of these books you've read. And if you want to, you can let me know in the comments below how many you have, maybe what ones you have. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. All my links are in the description below, and I'll see you guys in my next video.